Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations, and we are going to be doing a brand new craft. So I have done a couple of things up until now with needle felting. Today we're going to be doing wet felting, which explains my big bowl of warm water sitting over here. And we're going to start off easy, and we're going to wet felt around a glass bottle, jar, cup, whatever you want to use. I'm just using a little mason jar. So this is a great way to use your old spaghetti jars, relish jars, anything like that, turning them into something cute rather than just tossing them away. The nice thing about doing it around the glass, of course, is that now it can hold a candle, it could hold liquid, so you could use it as a vase, something like that. We're going to be shrinking our felt around that. We're going to be shrinking our wool, felting around it, so it's not something that's going to be necessarily removable, although you could do it so that it can. And we can talk a little bit about that, but we'll see how it goes. So the first thing is that the wool that we are using is called roving wool. It's not yarn. Clear distinction. This has been washed, it's been carded, but it hasn't been spun. So you've got all of the loose fiber. So this is what your wool is before it's gotten spun. And we're just going to create some base layers. So pretty basic in terms of what we need. We need some of our wool, we need a glass jar, we need a nylon. So I just get these from the dollar store. Normally I have knee highs. This one happens to be, I cut the leg off a pantyhose. It all works. We need some water and we need some soap. I'm just using Dawn dish soap. You could use nicer smelling soap. It just helps us be able to mesh some of the fibers together, be able to help us in the felting process, moving it. We're going to wash all the soap out, so really it doesn't matter. Some people that are really into this use all these specialty organic soap bars, but you know what? When we're just trialing this, just use what you got. All right, so you can see that this comes pretty compacted. I'm folding it out. I'm going to turn my jar upside down because the first thing that we're doing is we're looking to create some layers over this. Ultimately, I don't want splits, so you can see how that's kind of, you can see through it. So I will do another layer. The other thing about the roving wool is if you grasp it like this and you pull it slowly, it will tease apart. Don't cut it. We don't want those harsh lines. We want these feathery bits so that it all will ultimately merge in our project way better. So I put this one on front to back. I was going to say north to south, but it has nothing to do with where north and south is from where I'm standing. So front to back, side to side. And that kind of crossover helps me ensure that maybe I've got some density there. Now I've got a little spray bottle mister, and I'm just gonna kind of dampen this slightly just because I want to start to get it to kind of dense up a little bit and stick a little bit. But I do have a cloth off to the side to kind of wet my hands here. Dry my hands off so that I'm not touching my wool and getting it all wet. All right, so what I'm looking now at doing is just adding some other colors around the side. So this isn't going to be sticking yet. You can see that it's all kind of bunching out, and that's okay. I'm just looking to, there, I'm gonna wipe my hands on my sweater instead of. So the colors that you pick are completely your choice. They all work the same. So it's just whatever looks good for you. And don't worry about at this stage if you've got it completely covered or not, because we will be adding more wool. We'll be able to thicken it up. At this point, we are just creating a base. So this is going to be the foundation for us adding more wool and more colors after. All right, so I kind of have wool around the entire body of this. Now what we want to do, and this is the tricky part, is we want to completely cover it in our nylon. This is what's going to help us be able to keep the wool in place and help us to be able to felt it on here. So I just want to kind of tuck and roll out the nylon as I go to try and capture as much of it. But, you know, I can tuck. As it's sticking up, I can kind of tuck it and push it down in. That's all okay. I just want it to be around the body, and I don't want tons of it to be up around the lip, but some of it can be sticking up there. So here you can see it's all kind of slid from there. So I want to maybe get my hand in there, push some of my wool down. I mean, I can shore that up later, but I might as well do what I can now to try and even out some of what I know are going to be holes or weaker areas. Because I'm not doing a bowl, I'm not as concerned. And bowls, we're going to be making bowls, so get ready for it. But that's a different process. This is kind of the easy start to where we're going to go. Okay, so I've kind of got this around, okay, and I'm just going to tie off a loose knot here. I'm going to be untying it, so don't go crazy. And now's when I start to wet it. The felt is going to start to, the wool is going to start to felt when it's wet. I'm going to take just a couple of teaspoons of soap in here. And then I'm going to dip my entire piece in here. So I'm getting my wool all wet, empty it out of the top of my jar. And I'm going to squeeze it. But now I'm going to start just kind of rubbing it lightly. I'm not doing a vigorous rub. I'm just kind of rubbing it lightly. But this is going to help start mat all those fibers together. Now I only have maybe about 5 minutes to do this before the fibers start poking out through my nylon and start adhering to my nylon. So I'm going to do this for the next 5 minutes, exactly what I'm doing now. You can see that my hands are all soapy. It's all starting to mat that yarn on, that wool on. Sorry, we're not using yarn. And I'm not going really hard and vigorous at this stage because I'm not really pushing my wool away from that slippery glass base. I'm trying to get it to kind of mat in place and start to shrink around it. So I'm going to come back after 5 minutes is done. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes, and what I want to do is I want to remove my stocking. Now we're going to want to do this carefully, and we may find that as we're pulling that it's kind of sticking. You can almost see some of the fibers sticking out, and I'm pulling against those fibers. See all those fibers sticking out there? So I'm going to hold those down. I want to pull this away. So that's why we don't want to leave the nylon on for too long. It's not finished felting onto my jar yet. I'm going to do this process a couple more times, but I don't want this to get so adhered onto my jar that I can't remove it. So putting this off to the side because we're going to put the same nylon on again, right? But you can see this is the start of my jar. Already looking very lovely. Look at those colors. Look at the swirls. So here's where, you know, I get to see this weak area here. I get to start adding more, and I'm just drying off before I touch things. I want to add just a little bit more of that creamy white in that area. And I can put this on like I did before. I could dampen it with a bit of water. I could even put it into my soapy water to kind of wet, to be able to lay across now so that I can maybe control and direct where it goes a little bit more. So what I might do is start to add in some other yarns, like add a bit of colors to it now. Here's where you get to play, that you can tease away some other little yarns and fibers. I can kind of pull them apart. I could wet them a little bit so that maybe I want to swirl them a little, right? So that they're not just all going in one direction. Take a bit of water and I can kind of use the water, just kind of put it in place a little bit so that when I go to put that nylon over top, right, that it helps just kind of keep it where I want it to be until I get that nylon on. And you could do this to follow some of the natural curves, like there was a swoop of color there. I can just let it go, period, around the side in whatever way that I want. Kind of tease apart those fibers a bit to get a little bit more of that look. Don't forget my bottom. So see how it's swirling around now. And maybe introduce, oh, what do I want to do? Do I want a little bit of that green? Maybe not. What about maybe try a little bit of this curly stuff? I need a little pair of scissors for you. Now, not all fibers are going to want to be felted, but play with it, experiment. The worst thing that happens is it doesn't stick on your piece and, you know, you just end up removing it. Okay, so I'm kind of digging that. Maybe something happening here. That's enough of you, though. I don't know. Well, if I introduce another color, then I feel compelled to introduce another color. I'd have to do more of it. Okay, let's go back to you then. So you can make them as colorful as you want, as, you know, earth colored or more organic, or I'm doing this one a little bit organic, but you could do maybe flowers and things. So what we want to do, and I try to keep the seam out of my stocking. So we're just going to cover it. This is so much easier going on now, right? We're going to cover that again, and I'm just going to get a little bit more soap. and just wet it up a bit. I don't need to dip it because it's still, my wool is still wet, but I do want to start to incorporate those new fibers. I still want to felt it. So let me just get this over here. So I am gonna add more water, and I am going to start to agitate it more. And each time that we do this, we are felting it more, we're making it stronger, and we can go a little firmer. So when we're first doing it, the fibers haven't meshed together yet, so we're being pretty gentle. Once they start meshing, then we can go a little bit stronger with it, really work some of the edging and things. And you're gonna start to see, like this is all kind of clean on the surface, but when you start to see this is leftover from before, these little fibers sticking out, then you know it's time to pull this off, pull the nylon off. You can adjust, add more wherever you need to. If you're still seeing weak areas or you want a little bit of color somewhere else, then that's your time to do it. Put the nylon back on and start rubbing and felting it some more. Make sure you don't forget the bottom, your edgings, all those things. So I'm gonna go another 5 minutes or so until I start getting too many fibers coming up. And then we'll take a look and see where we're at and how much more I need to go. Okay, this is my second felting. I'm taking this off, and I'm being careful to ensure, you know, some of those new fibers, you can see they're not fully felted on, but they were definitely starting to come through. Pull off the excess off my nylon. So I just want to go around carefully. So a little bit of a hole starting there. Okay, so now I just want to pick off any fibers that I see on my nylon so that it's not interfering when I want to put it on again. I still need to felt this more. It's definitely not finished at all, but I just want to check and make sure, see if there's any other spots that look a little weak that I want to add some more felt to, if I have enough color on there everywhere. It's looking really pretty though, isn't it? And then we're just going to do that entire process again. And we'll keep doing it until this feels all matted. It feels nice and firm. I don't have a lot of fibers falling off it. It all seems uniform. So I still have more to go because some of those new fibers are still all definitely still loose, and I want them to be as one. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay. At this stage, I'm looking at I'm done. Everything seems to be kind of on there. It's all nice and tight. The last time I pulled this off after 5 minutes, there were almost no fibers sticking to it, which gives me a good indication that the fibers are all kind of meshed in here really nicely. So next step, and this is going to be easier for me. I'm going to take it to the sink, and I'm going to, I want to rinse out the soap. So I'm going to put it under as hot of water as I can stand. So, you know, it could be lukewarm, but, you know, at least on the warm side, because we still want to be shrinking the fibers. And I'm going to be letting that water run into it, and I'm going to be squishing the soap out and reforming it onto here. Now, the only thing that you might want to pay attention to is what's happening up here. I have wool that has come around the top. So I am actually, before I take it to the sink, I'm going to cut that off. Now, you might want to leave that. Maybe the use that you have in mind, you like that slightly more organic look. I'm going to cut it off. But this is now kind of opening up those layers, and we're exposing them. So in essence, we look at cutting the wool like this has now created a cut, and we need to heal that. So before I take it over, I'm actually going to go and kind of rub those fibers a bit, because I want all of those to be felted too. I don't want them to be all separating out. It's not absolutely critical for this project, certainly more critical for other projects, but it will also help give me a more finished look, and it will help it adhere around the rim. So I'm gonna go rinse it until I get no more soap coming off of it. Okay, so this is my rinsed jar. I'm loving this. Really, all that's left is to leave it to dry overnight. Now, if you leave it overnight and you look at it and you're going, oh, there's a gaping hole that I missed, just wet it again. You can still wet it and felt it some more. You could say, oh, there's a big hole, so add a little bit more wool to it, get your soapy water, cover it with your nylon, and start felting it some more. So they can, you can keep doing more. Once you've left them, you could add to them more if you decide that you need to. So don't worry about, gee, I called it quits too early. Now, some of these fibers aren't fully meshed in there. I'm kind of digging them sticking out a little bit. But if that bothers you, it could be just that those fibers don't like to be felted. But you could then take, like some really thin fibers from your roving wool and just lay them slightly over the edge and then felt some more. And then that will help put it in place. Right now, I'm kind of liking the organic feel, and I'm going to leave this to dry. But look how cute that little mason jar is now. And that's really, such a cute thing, like whether you're using it for your pens on your desk, whether you're going to put flowers into it, because we've got it on the jar, it's perfect. Now, because this tapers in, once this dries, you're not going to be pulling this jar out. You could use a jar or a jar that goes straight, or a jar that opens this way, in which case you're probably going to be able to lift the jar out and just have a felted pot if you decided to use this method. But there's easier ways than this to do a bowl. This is really more designed that you could do, like big milk jugs or wine bottles or anything that even narrows, because this is going to be permanent. But pretty sweet, pretty easy, and definitely a lot of fun. It's the prettiest mason jar I've ever seen. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. Let me know if you're going to give it a try. We're definitely going to be jumping into doing some bowls. I have a couple of supplies that I have to dig up to be able to do it. But man, this was super fun. So those bowls are going to be awesome. Coming soon.